And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Satsang with G. For those of you who don't know me, I'm G. And please, by all means, while you're here, just type in quickly what your name is and who you're from. Where you're from, not who you're from. Don't need your parents' name. Just where you're tuning in from. It's always really fun for me to see people from all over the world stopping in for satsang. And I've called this week's episode "The Ultimate Teacher" because I get a lot of questions about teachings and about teachers. I also get a lot of people who are very critical of spiritual teachers, and really for good reason. It is something we really do have to be cautious about. There are good teachers out there and there are bad teachers out there. There are people who know what they're doing and can't teach very well. There's others who don't really know what they're doing and teach that very well and teach that which isn't true very, very well. So I wanted to just speak a little bit about where the ultimate teacher has to reside. The true guru, the true teacher, appears in your life in many, many different forms, because it's not a person per se. It's not a thing. It's not some being who shows up to guide you. It's always a reflection of that inner prompting, right? There's something inside all of us that is seeking the truth. And that way inside us, which is seeking the truth, is actually the truth. It's the truth simply trying to liberate itself. And as such, it is going to bring circumstances and people and animals and books and all sorts of things into your life for the express purpose of fulfilling the innate desire that we all have, which is to come to know ourselves as we actually are. It is an innate, inherent desire and need of all of us. So it's not the kind of thing that you can do away with. It's not the kind of thing that you planned, right? You didn't make it up. You didn't decide, I think I'm going to search for the truth. It all actually unfolded very naturally. I mean, there's a million things you could be doing on your Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening or Monday morning, whenever you're watching this. But something inside you has you coming here, or maybe it's another spiritual teacher or some other kind of practice that you have. Oh, these weren't really choices we made. These are not like conscious decisions like we normally think of it. They were a response to an inner prompting. The ultimate teacher is simply that, is grace. It is our inherent desire for truth, and something inside us that recognizes it when we see it. We can't always imagine it. We can't always come up with it. We can't always come up with the words, but there's something inside us that just rings true when we encounter something that's true. We say things like, that really resonated with me, or I had this intuition, or, this thought came to me. Those are all different ways of expressing this fundamental capacity we have to attract stuff into our lives that reflects or manifests that truth, and our innate capacity to recognize it. I had an interesting question that came up, that somebody made a comment on one of my videos that kind of fits in here. And the question that she had was actually a little bit of confusion about some of my videos seem to contradict some of my other videos, like stuff I would teach about the law of attraction, which I don't really teach very much anymore. I let other people take care of that because there's plenty of people out there doing it. On one hand, I'm saying none of this actually matters. The manifestation, the abundance is all within. And then the next minute, I might be saying about how you can, have and get everything you want. It's not a contradiction any more than calculus is a contradiction of geometry, which is a a contradiction of arithmetic, right? It just sees things from a different level. Newtonian physics, as we learned it, and it was the law of the land for several hundred years, was actually supplanted by the theory of relativity. It didn't make the laws of physics go away. It just revealed that they're not absolute, that they only appear to be absolute within the context of our rather stable world, that we're operating at a certain time, in certain characteristics, certain amount of gravity, and the Earth and the sun are moving at a particular speed, and therefore the speed of light has this constant. And so the physics are consistent and reproducible and predictable, even though the relativity revealed that they're not absolute, that they're only consistent within this particular framework that we have. The metaphysical and spiritual teachings are no different. The law of attraction is true, but only on this level, right? That is, it works on this level, and it continues to work when you have a broader, more comprehensive level, but you begin to see that that's not the whole picture, that's not the whole truth. And so something like manifestation would seem like it's the be all and end all, from the point of view of me still identified with a finite being, with an egoic mind, with certain limits and stuff. I can take off some of those limits and have a broader experience of life, and have access to more things and more stuff, and actually manifest. Because anytime a sense of limitation falls away, your life is going to rush in to fill up that space with a completely different experience, an experience that corresponds to the new level of belief or vibration or energy, or however you want to put it. But the limit on that is that it is still limited by the sense of identity. The ultimate teaching completely breaks apart the sense of identity so that you see that you just don't have a relationship with source energy, as they like to say in law of attraction stuff. You are source energy. That you are what you're seeking. That you are the very source of everything that you had sought when you were identified with a finite, limited, bounded person. Every true spiritual advance isn't you acquiring a better belief. It's you being dispossessed of the false notion of who you were. You literally become more by knowing yourself better. That is, your experience becomes expanded. It becomes more. It becomes richer, more abundant, more interesting, more resourceful, more peaceful, because you are no longer limited or bound by the sense of identity, right? It's who you think you are, the image you hold of yourself, the whole way you view yourself completely determines the entirety of your experience. Nothing, you can't experience something outside of the parameters of what you allow yourself to experience. And those are determined not so much by what we believe about things and about the world and about, how the universe works, but about what we believe about ourselves, the self-image that you hold. That determines the quality of your experience. Now, one of the key things that's actually even a step beyond that is that as it begins to unfold who you really are, your entire set of motivation, your aspirations, your desires, your loves, all of that begins to adjust, because all of your desires, all of the things that you wanted to make manifest, were all based on that sense of identity. When the sense of identity expands, everything else expands with it. And ultimately, the spiritual path becomes the pure search for truth, not for the results that it's going to get you, not because, if I know myself better, then I'm going to have all the things that I want. That's actually a lower level sense of desire. the more the false sense of self peels away and the true sense of self is revealed, the more pure and broad and universal and unselfish desire becomes, until you are seeking truth for truth's sake, not because of the benefits that it's going to give you, not because, oh, if I know this truth, then I'm going to have a better, better life or better relationships or better house. All of that happens. All of that may happen. It simply becomes unimportant, and which means you're free in this moment. If I think I need something to be happy, I am not free, because I am dependent upon that thing, and I'm dependent on all the circumstances that make it possible for me to have that thing. And then if I get that thing, I'm dependent on the circumstances that let me keep it. All of that takes away freedom. Freedom means I need absolutely nothing in order to be happy. And folks, that's the whole point of life. That's the whole point of human life, is to find happiness that is permanent. And that can never be found in any object. Everybody listening to me knows that nothing you've ever had in your life, nothing has brought permanent happiness. That's because it can't. It can only bring a temporary sense of happiness, because there's a relief in the searching for happiness outside. Once it's satisfied, the desire goes away and you experience happiness in its natural form. So I hope that answers the question that was put about the difference. Why might you can have two videos right next to each other and they will appear to contradict themselves. It's only because I'm speaking to different states of mind. Everything I say is not appropriate for everyone who's listening. I did one retreat last year that was almost pure non-duality. There was none of this manifestation, nothing. It was at the Krishnamurti Center. Krishnamurti was a non-dual teacher, as well as a very socially aware teacher, but primarily a non-dual teacher. And so we kept the subject completely non-dual, and none of this other stuff came up. But there's got thousands of people who have listened to things on YouTube and and follow me on Facebook and all of that sort of thing, or read some of the simple thoughts that go out. And so there's a wide variety of states of mind and attitudes and cultures and stuff that that myself as a spiritual teacher want to do my best to reach. And so I conform the message to fit the audience that I'm speaking to, and then use that as the platform to try to take them to the next level of wherever it's possible to get to. Sometimes that can be as simple as relieving something that's bothering somebody in the moment using EFT, all the way up to the deepest kind of inquiry into the true nature of yourself and genuine self-realization. So it can cover the entire gamut. And you should bear that in mind when you're listening to any teacher. Any teacher at any moment is speaking to a particular state of mind. The more experienced and the better the teacher is, the more different states of mind the teacher can teach to, until you get to somebody like Buddha, who could speak to anybody, any state of mind whatsoever. Many of the teachers can't. I know a lot of people who they're masters of teaching things, energy healing and EFT and the like. They can't address the existential questions at all, but that's not their focus. I know other people who are non-dual teachers, but they can't step outside of the absolute and deal with somebody who's having an emotional problem. They just disregard the emotional problem. It doesn't exist. So when you're listening to anybody, you have to take that into account. What state of mind are they talking to? And that will determine how to put what context to wrap around it. So you may find me speaking to somebody about how to manifest more income, right? And you're beyond that. So watch instead for the tidbits I'm trying to drop in there, because at some point in the conversation, I will always come back to the idea that the quality of our experience is determined by our sense of identity. And At the lowest level of the whole law of attraction thing, you're not dealing with your identity or your character. It's just, can I make my mind focus on things that are better quality, or can I exchange this feeling for a better feeling, which is a very fundamental level. And the answer is yes. That's an endless loop unless you recognize that the source of those feelings, the essence where those thoughts and feelings are actually coming from, is the sense of identity. And you can change them all day, but it's like pulling leaves off of a tree. They're just going to grow back. That's the way it is. Yes, you can make incremental progress that day, but if you start diving further down into the depths, exploring who you actually are and who you think you are, and seeing the big difference between the two, that's when progress really gets made. And it keeps getting made all the way up to the point where you don't really even care what manifests anymore. It doesn't matter, because that's not where your freedom lies. Just having a better, what others would see as a better quality life or more successful life, is not going to be satisfying. It's not innately satisfying. So I hope that answers the question. I think it was Olga who asked that on one of the comments. I do try to answer every question, but needless to say, I'm getting kind of inundated with them. And I get plenty from the students and my certified facilitators, so I kind of obligated to take care of those first. So anyway, that was my little bit about the ultimate teacher. The ultimate teacher is that inner voice within you. Ultimately, you will see that that isn't just a voice within you, that is actually you, the real you. But that only happens when a sense of identity, the self-image we've identified with, has begun to be seen that that's not you. And that what has been identified with that sense of identity is the real you. And coming to know what that is what genuine spiritual practice and inquiry is all about. So let's see, we have, you, hello GP, this is Ursula from Madeira Island in Portugal. Oh, hello, I think you're brand new. Thank you. Mitra from Iran, hello again, Mitra, good to see you. Das Wies, good evening from the Netherlands. Eli, my man, what's up? From the kitchen, washing some dishes, making that I need your nose. Very good. Eli's great. Let's see. Oh, P.L. Marsh, Patricia Marsh. I think it's Patricia, right? Yeah. Pat from Alberta. Hi, Pat. Vera finally made it to a live stream. Hello from New Hampshire. Hi, Vera. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Ivailo from Bulgaria. Hello from Bulgaria. Poppy. Hi. From Greece. Hello, Poppy. How are you? You're the best teacher. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I guess that means I'm the best for you, at least for now. And that's really the way I think it. There is a beautiful resonance, between the student and teacher. When you find your teacher, you've actually found the path inward that's coming from you. And I always like to point that out. It's always coming from you. And the only credit I get is just being learning this slow enough and exploring so many avenues that I have a wide range of things that I can talk about. Because a lot of things were interesting to me, and it just didn't come easily. I had to kind of like one step at a time. I had a lot of stuff. I was a really broken human being when this stuff began to dawn on me, and it took a lot of time to become even functional. I was dysfunctional. I mean, I came from a dysfunctional family with dysfunctional parents who just didn't know how to do anything. Not on a spiritual level, practical level. They were dullards. They had no interest in music and art. Well, my father did, but he just kind of disappeared. So there was just no cultivation and stuff. The end result is, I mean, it really sucked at the time. But the end result is that I learned a lot of stuff. I cultivated myself a lot of stuff to develop character and to explore and to learn things. And as the end result is that I have a lot of stuff to share at this time in my life, which is actually kind of the whole point of when you become an elder, which I clearly am. Let's see, Dr. Damien, hi from Ohio. Hi, Doctor. Marlene Schrader from Alamo. Hello, Marlene. Laura Reed from Hammond, Wisconsin. Wonderful, wonderful. Seeking Truth. As a question, how do you deal with annoying disturbances that pop up in the mind when you're meant to be doing something important? These annoying thoughts suddenly pop up out of nowhere and distract me. Thanks, GP. There's no magic bullet, okay? This is a practice. I always like to point that out. There's nothing like, all of a sudden it's going to be, it's going to be easy. It becomes, the shift takes place when you realize that all you're experiencing is just another aberration of the mind. It's just another habit of the mind. And yeah, it's going to happen. You'll be doing something and all of a sudden it's like squirrel, right? I mean, something's going to pop up to distract you. The moment you realize that you've been distracted, you put a smile on your face, you go, gotcha. And you bring your attention back to what matters to you, to where you're actually focused. This, if you make it a big deal, oh, I got distracted. Oh no, not again. You're really, it's got you, right? You just took the bait, because the mind wants to distract you. I explain this in all the courses, but the whole defense mechanism of the nervous system is to keep us from feeling the essential trauma that we've experienced, to keep us from feeling that sense, I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, or any of that. And so the defensive posture is there to try to not feel that. So the more you begin to turn inward, the more spiritual your inquiry becomes, the more the mind is going to get activated trying to distract you from it. Now, it's not your enemy per se. It's not trying to hurt you. That's its whole design. The whole design of the protective mechanism was because it was a traumatic event. It's trying to hide the traumatic event. And as we turn inward, it kind of releases this energy, and memories can come up and stuff can come up and feelings come up. But we're doing it in an environment that's safe so that it's not re-traumatizing, which is really, really important, obviously. So it means that this habit pattern, this functioning of the mind to distract you, is going to be there. And it's going to stay there for a while because it's a deeply ingrained habit. That's why it's happy as clam to have email and Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and everything in text, everything in the world to keep you distracted. There's just a million things, and the protective mind is very happy about that, because it'll make you think about a million things. You'll be right in the middle of a meditation, and all of a sudden it's going, oh God, did I leave the water boiling? Did I forget to turn off the iron? You could be sitting in your Zen retreat or something. Did I turn off the iron? And you're not going to know. And you're going to ruminate over that for a while. You just have to understand what it is. If you understand what it is, you can say, I get it. Thank you. I don't need you right now. And you bring yourself back to that focal point. The thing that makes the whole process dissolve is our lack of interest in it. When it no longer commands your attention, when you see it for what it is, and it allows you to keep your attention where you want it to be. And as you're doing that, you are creating more and more of an inner space of safety that allows the difficult material to come to the surface and be healed. And that's really what it's about. We want the traumatic material to finally be released because it's what's been inhibiting us. And as that gets released, the defensive posture begins to release, and all that energy that has been keeping us constricted, has been keeping us small, is now released into expansion because it's no longer having to do the job. The guard is off duty, right? It's got own free time now. It can do whatever it wants. Go have fun, go to a movie, go dance, because it's not on duty anymore. That's the nature of the human energy. It's either in a defensive posture or it's in an expressive posture. And most of the time it's in a defensive posture. The ideal state is when it's in an expressive posture with just enough monitoring the perimeter to make sure that you remain safe. That's the ideal. And you see that ideal expressed all the time in nature. Animals are calm, they're doing their thing, but there's a part of them that's very alert to danger. If a danger comes up, boom, they're there. They drop what they're doing. They're completely into, do I need to run or fight at this point? Usually run. Yes, no, no, back. Boom, all that energy is gone. They're back to what they're doing. And there's just this slight energy looking at, watching the horizon for some kind of danger. This is the ideal state. This is the natural human state that we've been programmed out of by a constant inundation of, well, first by traumas, mostly from our childhood, and then secondarily by a culture that is, basically warlike and wants to keep the population afraid. So I hope that answers your question, seeking truth. Thumbs up from Puppy. Let's see. Sorry, my old eyes. I've got to make this bigger. I gotta make this bigger. Oh, what happened? There we go. Let's see. Would you agree or disagree with the statement, the cause of happiness is not getting what you want? The secret to happiness is desire nothing. Be grateful for what you have. It's very interesting that on one side, the totally materialistic side, you have happiness lies in always getting what you want. So being wealthy, having everything go the way you want, being powerful guarantees you're going to get what you want. So you'll be happy more most of the time. Of course, it's demonstrably not true. People who do have the power and all that money and stuff aren't any happier, sometimes less happier. But the opposite of that is kind of what's kind of taken mostly to be the spiritual track, which is to have no desire whatsoever. I go with the Buddha and I go to the middle way. You can't not have desire. To not have desire is like saying, I don't want my hair to grow, or I don't want to eat anymore, or I don't want to reproduce, or I don't care about shelter. Desire is the energy of life. When we personalize it and say, my desire must be met, or I won't be happy, we've stepped into the materialistic view. If I say that, then I'm going to get rid of all desires, I've stepped into this kind of ascetic spiritual view, and neither one of those works. The true middle way is recognizing that desires are a natural part of life, but my personal happiness does not depend on whether a desire is fulfilled or not. That if the desire is fulfilled, great, I will experience the emotional feeling of upliftment of a desire being met and the satisfaction of it. And it's all wonderful, right? But of course, it will eventually wear away, and I'm still here. I'm still fine. It came and it went. A desire can arise and not get fulfilled. I'm still here. I'm still in the same place. My happiness doesn't depend on whether desires are fulfilled or not, which means I can let a desire arise, let it have its own life, let it do its thing, and I am unconcerned as to whether it gets made manifest or not. Do you understand the difference? You can't get rid of desire. So it's not the desire you need to get rid of. It is the desirer. It is the relationship you make with the desire. If I say, I've got to have that desire or I'm not going to be happy, you have created a relationship now. You've made it important and your life now serves it. But if the desire just comes, you see, well, it's got its own energy. It's going to fulfill itself or not. It has no effect on me or my true happiness. You're not fighting with the desire. You're not trying to get it. You're not trying to get rid of it. You are in the perfect middle way. You are neither materialistic nor are you spiritual in the sense of being an ascetic. Right? Most people's view of spirituality is like, you hear that all the time. You have to transcend desire. You transcend desire by realizing it's not your desire. It's the desire of life. If it becomes my desire, my responsibility, and my life depends upon it, well, then I'm stuck with it. Then I got to do something about it. But if I see that it's just life and that it's not personal, well, then great. I mean, I don't choose to blink my eyes. They just blink, right? That's what they do. And I don't want to stop them from blinking. ever tried to do that? It hurts. So, but it's not mine. I don't take it personally. I say, oh God, I have to blink again. Oh, I got to work really hard to blink. It's not like that. The problem is our identification with it. The problem is who we think we are. And if the image I have of myself is somebody who must fulfill these desires in order to be happy, well, that's the experience I'm going to have. And I'm going to be in a constant conflict with myself about how to fulfill the desires. But if I don't see that, then I just see, oh, desire arises. Of course it does. It's natural. Happiness comes, emotional happiness comes and goes. Genuine, deep contentment, you'll find, is behind the whole thing. And the more you see that, the more you recognize desire as belonging to nature, the more you begin to just sink in and become established in this other place, which is the true ground of being, which is constantly content and peaceful, simultaneously experiencing a peak of happiness, experiencing the feeling of loss and the grief of losing something that's close to you. But whether you're on the upswing or the downswing, on the ebb or the flow, there is this constant in the background. There's just like this contentment. Does that answer your question? Jump Tube 4000. Mitra says, Hafiz, a Persian poet, says a lost soul was crying for, and he didn't know that he has already the whole power. Yeah, it sounds like a Sufi poem. The Sufis were so, I mean, the Sufis are the non-dual or mystical part of Islam, like Kabbalah is for Judaism, and Christian mysticism is in Christianity, which was all but wiped out by the church. That was pretty stunning, the kind of job they did on it. But everyone seeking truth is actually seeking themselves. And when you realize the one who's doing the seeking is what's sought, your attention immediately does a 180. And you start examining what's just the feeling of existence. Me, the one who's seeking. I mean, I'm the one that's seeking, and I'm the one that's being sought. So getting to know that, really becoming deeply familiar with that, it inevitably takes energy away from the seeking. At least seeking some kind of new idea of who I am, and instead begins to bring us more into the heart. It drops us out of our heads and into our heart in just this sense of pure feeling. You are what you are seeking. What you are looking for is where you are looking from. And much of the seeking is the sense that something outside exists that is going to be the answer to this great secret. And it's not. You are. Just the simple, constant, ordinary, almost imperceptible sense of your existence. That is it. That is your existence. And you'll eventually discover that it is empty in that it is infinite in scope. It has no form, so it can take any form. It has no limits whatsoever, but is quite happy to momentarily limit itself to give expression to something. And so it becomes quite mystical. Like Hafiz was saying, lost soul crying for didn't know that he already has the power. Yes, we are crying over what we imagine we don't have. Not and the big eye opener of the Sufi or the Kabbalah or mysticism is simply that I am that. I'm it. I am what has been seeking it. Eli says, yes, the search for truth. Some of my biggest breakthroughs came when I switched from looking for the thing that sounds the best and that my mind likes the most and switched to just looking for truth. Thank you, Eli. That you put it perfectly. You know, if you look at all the advertising and marketing and for stuff on the internet, whether it be for a spiritual thing, a spiritual technology or practice, or whether it be for just, pure success and making money, it always is the same thing. It's always talking about what you're going to get. It's always about the results. It's about the thing that this practice is going to bring to you. You're going to be more healthy. You're going to be more peaceful. You're going to be more compassionate, or you're going to have more money. You're going to have more opportunities. It's always the same. As a matter of fact, if anybody's studied anything of, marketing, that's always what you're talking. You're selling the benefits. What how do you sell the benefits of the truth? Say, oh, if I know the truth, then I'm going to get everything I want, and everything's going to be good, and that's going to be really cool, and I'm going to be all the money, and whatever, right? What about the truth? If you really look at what truth is, it's the truth. The truth isn't intimidated by lies. It isn't bowled over. It's absolutely substantial. You can't change it. You can't deny it. You can't get rid of it. It is the absolutely sound, infinite, and eternal. It is the solid rock of being. The truth of your being is truth itself. And so ultimately, the spiritual path is to find the truth of being for its own sake, not because it's going to make my life better, I'm going to get my return on investment, but because it's the truth. And because it's the truth, pretty much holds all the cards. The truth never conforms to me. It doesn't conform to my will. It doesn't conform to what I want to see happen. I don't manipulate the universe into giving me what I want. Not really. The truth demands, if you could put it that way, because it's simply the truth and it is what it is, that we conform to it, that our ideas about ourselves conform to the truth of ourselves, about ourselves, that we abandon all of our ideas for what's absolutely true. And that truth is true whether I believe it or not. So my experience of life is always what I believe. Okay? And yet at the bottom of it is the truth of the being. And that truth of being is the simple existence that we all experience all the time. The fact that you are conscious, self-aware being, you are hearing my words. What's hearing my words? That's the truth. Whatever that is, that's the truth. Conforming ourselves to the truth, seeking the truth for its own sake, is the highest calling a human being can hear and follow. And if that becomes your ambition, the lower ambitions will fall away. You'll find yourself a lot less concerned about things, a lot more resourceful, a lot more imperturbable, because nothing can shake the truth. And as you align to the truth, you find that nothing can shake you, because you and the truth are becoming increasingly merged to the point where you'll see that's all there ever was. That's all you've ever been. And everything else was just a thought. Michael says hi from Los Angeles. Hello, Michael. Good to have you. Patang. Hi, GP from Israel. Hello, Patang. I do not believe in teaching, but rather in guidance and facilitating a space for self-inquiry. I totally agree. If by teaching is meant another belief system, then it's useless. I shouldn't say useless, because obviously some teachings are better than others. Some are closer to the truth than others. But ultimately, the teacher is within, the teaching is within, and the best teacher or guru is simply guiding you to the place where you are asking the right questions in the right state of mind to hear the answers, that you become increasingly sensitive to your own delusions and illusions, that you become powerful and courageous in questioning your assumptions and taking everything to task. The teacher is really a pointer, pointing you in a certain direction, and will engage like Plato would do, just simply engage in questions and answers. He never said anything to somebody. Somebody would make a statement they thought was true. They would just question it, pick at it. Believe me, you can pick at the truth all you want. It's not concerned, right? It's not worried that it's going to fall apart, right? But a lie or an error or a mistake or an illusion or even just a subtle mistake, that you can pick apart. If you just keep piercing and piercing and pointing, those will all fall apart. But the truth won't. When you pick it to death and it doesn't move, you know you're on solid ground. Thank you, Patang. Saif, I hope I said that right. IGP, what are your thoughts on magical practice, evoking higher beings? Thank you. Let's see. Again, if you're here right in the beginning when I was talking about different levels, it's not the highest level, but it's also not invalid. Like I said, just because something is not the highest level doesn't make it invalid any more than the laws of physics that were invalidated by the theory of relativity. They were simply now put into a context so they could be understood. There's a larger perspective that allows you to understand them on a deeper level. When you look at the scale or the continuum of human consciousness, you see it from total ignorance on one end to total enlightenment on the other. Total delusion down here, complete mistaking of your own nature, thinking of yourself as simply being a physical body. And on the other hand is the realization of your nature as infinite consciousness. Now, all the way along that line in between the two are all sorts of different levels and possibilities for human inquiry. Right? The religious and spiritual experiences, lie somewhere along this line. Magical experiences, other dimensions, out-of-body experiences. You notice every one of those removes you a bit from the extreme. I am nothing but a physical form. I am made out of matter. Consciousness is nothing but a function of matter. And that's all there is. When the body ends, I end. Period. Everything's governed by physical law. Period. Every one of these other experiences, mystical, magical, alchemical, all of these move away from that point of view. All of those bring consciousness out of that into a level where consciousness is at least a factor, right? Even the law of attraction, which is really kind of a primitive teaching, takes one out of the victimhood of materiality and makes your own thinking and feeling a factor in determining the quality of your life. And it can expand and grow into deeper spiritual practices. So what you'll notice is that every single one of these things is some line on the continuum where consciousness is shedding its limitations. Right. So the moment you have any kind of practice you put on it, whether it be something very expansive like magical practices, which are, right? And magical only means it defies material law, right? If you look at actual magic, there are processes and stuff in there. It's a different view of the universe. It's a different view of how things work. But every single practice and every single teaching you'll begin to see is limited. It has a particular structure around it, and it has at its root a certain view of the universe as being external to myself, the one who's viewing it. And so while the laws of nature are different, they're far more expansive and far more humane and far more interesting, really, than purely material laws. They still see those laws as being something that exists externally to myself and not a projection of consciousness. And so those two will eventually be seen as being not the highest level. Higher than this level for sure, but not here. Here is pure, unbounded, pure shunyata, pure empty consciousness that is infinite and totally without limitations, which means nothing can define it. And there is no world outside that we are engaging with whether those laws be completely materialistic or be very totally metaphysical or anything in between, anything that exists separate from consciousness, you realize that you have created a world in your mind that doesn't actually exist. And the moment you do that, you confine yourself within it. And when you see that that's happening, you realize there are no limits on consciousness. Consciousness has no parameters. You aren't stuck anywhere. But we all start somewhere along that continuum, and we all work our way there. There can be the occasions with that huge insight, and suddenly we just whoop, and we just like jump, and sometimes jump all the way to the end. Very few have done that, but many have. Nisargadatta, Maharaj, Ramana, Christ, Buddha, Muji. I mean, whoop. But looking at all of their lives, there was a path, and all of a sudden something just went bam, the whole thing fell apart, and they found themselves at the end. So when you're looking at any of these things, notice I don't criticize any practice. I'm just trying to put it into perspective so you don't get stuck there. The only thing I care about is that you don't get stuck there thinking that any teaching is the absolute. No teaching is the absolute. The ultimate teaching is self-awareness, consciousness that has no boundaries. Even me using the word consciousness that has no boundaries conveys a thought to you. That thought you can get stuck in, which I turn the attention directly to how do you experience consciousness? And of course, you are the consciousness that is experiencing. That examination of the way in which you're actually experiencing life is where the real revelation is. So everything I'm teaching you, talking to you about, or pointing, I'm not trying to get you stuck anywhere. I'm just trying to show you that it's really easy to get stuck all sorts of different places. And it's okay to hang out in a place, hang out in magic, hang out in metaphysics, hang out in the law of it. It's fine as long as you see that it's not the absolute, that eventually you will tire of it. You will, I've had enough of this. I'm done. I don't want to play this game anymore. And you'll let it go. It will serve its purpose for you and grow your character to the point where you're actually able to take that next step, or maybe leapfrog a couple of steps. So does that help, Saif? Again, I always like to make the point, wherever anybody is legitimate. Wherever you are is legitimate. Whatever you're interested in, don't say, oh, this teacher says I shouldn't be interested, and so don't do it. Absolutely not. You should explore it for yourself. Just make sure you explore it from the point of view that your number one desire is to know the truth for truth's sake. That held as your primary desire will make sure you don't get stuck anywhere. It will take from everything you study and learn, everything that you could possibly benefit from it. That's what I did, but you won't get stuck there. I learned early on, there were some places I got stuck. I thought, this is the absolute, this is it. And it wasn't comfortable. There was something wrong with it. And eventually I began to realize, and eventually discovered Buddhist teachings and realized that there is no place. None of those places are true. The ultimate place is simply the wisdom that is the mother of all Buddhas, which has no limits, no boundaries, no rules, and nothing to define it. And in that moment, everything now becomes accessible. Every definition I can use, knowing full well that it is just a definition. So it's a tool for the moment. I can use that tool in teaching. I can use it for myself, but I don't get stuck there. And that's my only point. Let's say super digit AGP. How do I deal with loneliness? I often crave stimulation and food. Okay. Loneliness, grief, loss, feeling that something's missing, I need something, I'm not getting it, are all feelings. They're emotional or they're a sensation. But they're all some kind of energy going through the body, right? Now, if you take that feeling of loneliness and and put your entire attention on the feeling. Move towards it, not away from it. Our natural impulse is, I'm feeling lonely. My mind starts going, okay, I need stimulation. I need to eat. I need companionship. I need to get somebody. I need to make something happen. Now, eating, stimulation, companionship, intimacy, nothing wrong with any of that, okay? So it's not like you have to become a monk. I highly recommend none of you become monks or nuns, right? But instead, turn towards the feeling itself rather than following the mind's patterns, which is just the way we've been trained to avoid feeling. Turn towards that feeling, the actual feeling of loneliness. And then notice that the feeling has its own particular quality to it. Now, the mind has named that feeling loneliness, said it's a negative thing and I've got to get rid of it. Well, your mind doesn't grasp things. Your mind's habitual. So it's not actually present feeling that. It's got a story about it and wants to get right into the story. And the whole point of that is so that you don't feel it. So feel it instead. And as you're feeling it, notice that your mind wants you to not feel it. There's a lot of thoughts to try to distract you. Say, I'm not going to be distracted now. Just bring back to the feeling that's there. And then try to go beyond even the word loneliness, which is, of course, a word. The feeling didn't announce itself and give itself a word. The feeling was just there. And our minds and our training named it gave it a particular name and quality, and therefore a particular meaning, and then a whole laundry list of things you're supposed to do. It's negative, you don't want it, you need to get away from it, get stimulation, get something to get out of the way of that. But all of that came later. None of that's actually in the feeling itself. So what I always invite people to do, and all of my courses that I teach, and every practice that I do, and every retreat, and every live, everything I do, that's where I start. Just go back to the feeling itself. And let's see what the feeling actually is, without any of our ideas about it, without any of our thoughts about it, without any of our preconceived notions, without even the word loneliness attached to it. Do that and stay with it and watch what happens. You'll find that the actual suffering isn't in that feeling. There's nothing in that feeling to create suffering from you. And as you do that, the feeling itself will begin to move and transform. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't have any companionship, or you should never do anything stimulating, or no entertainment. It's not it at all. It's when we are seeking companionship or entertainment to avoid feeling is where the problem comes in. But if we're just with that feeling, it can find its own contentment. It can find its own expression. It can find an expression just being by yourself, doing nothing, being yourself with a book or something like this, at an event like this where you're sitting by yourself and having a conversation with me. Or it can express itself at I went to a movie a couple nights ago. I haven't been to a movie in years. I went by myself. Yeah, my son and wife were just here. I went by myself. It was quite lovely. Just, that was it. So it doesn't have to mean you're going to live like a monk if you never, right? It doesn't mean any of that. And again, that's another way in which the habitual thinking of the mind draws our attention away from, oh, you're going there. Well, you're never going to do anything again. You're just going to be this contented blob. You're going to sit there. It's not true. It's simply not true. Go to the feeling. Everything is about the feeling. It's about the sensations in your body. It's about the emotions that are running through. Feel. When you really feel it, you find that there's no suffering in your life. That all the suffering is the argument your mind has with what's happening right now. And when you really, and you even find out that argument doesn't have any teeth in it. There's no truth in it. You've been believing a lie. You've been believing an idiot. And when you actually go into the feeling yourself, you find there's no suffering there. You find that for yourself. It's not a belief. It's I'm inviting you. Go for yourself. Jump in. Feel it. At first, it's uncomfortable. You'll notice all the resistance. Just keep going. Little by little, the resistance will fall away, which is just there to try to get you to not feel it. And little by little, that feeling will transform itself. And what you'll be doing is quite literally liberating perhaps lifetimes worth of traumatic energy from the system simply through that presence. And let's see. Hi from Belgium. Hello, Angela. There's a Vera asked a question which is actually very closely related, and I think I started to answer it from Super Teach It, which is if all we seek is within us already, what about the human need to share affection, love with another human being? I can't reach in myself and pull out someone to hug. I just want that shared love. Of course you do. And the genuine spiritual teaching doesn't deny that. It simply reestablishes your relationship with it. If I am going to be miserable unless I have someone to hug, I am now dependent on my relationships. And if my relationship goes through a tough time, I'm absolutely miserable. Matter of fact, not only am I miserable, I'm afraid. I could actually compromise myself because I don't want to let go of that. You can see how you can become entrapped in that. But at the same time, we cannot deny our human nature that we want intimacy, we want closeness, we want affection, we want sex, we want family, we want community. All of those things are true. And all of those things, the more you recognize that the essence of them is within you, not the whole thing. Of course not. Right? If I want to have affection, there's got to be somebody here to have affection with. I'm not trying to make an imaginary world that exists only within my own head. I'm finding that the essence, the substance, the very source of everything I experience is within me. And the more I liberate that, the more it has the ability to express itself externally. But if I believe that what I'm seeking is outside, I have created a schism. Now my inner energy and the outer energy, all my energy gets directed to trying to acquire the outer energy. And so now I'm on the defensive path. I'm on the path of acquisition. I'm like a Ferengi from Star Trek. Whereas from the true spiritual, I'm not trying to get it. I'm letting myself expand to the point where I experience it as expression, knowing full well that expressions come and go. But the source, the true energy, the true reality of me doesn't come and go. And so it will find, the more you liberate that, the more you find this within. And there's a challenge because at the beginning, it feels like you're having to deny a lot of the external stuff. And you will be because you've been dependent upon it. And to recover the internal independence, it will feel as if there's real losses taking place, maybe even, dying. There's a feeling of ego death in that. But if you persevere, if what I'm saying resonates and sounds true, that it really is there, then eventually that energy will be liberated and it will find expression in your life through real relationships, real people to hug and make love to, and real family and real community and real collaboration and real sharing. But it's a completely different quality. It is a sharing without dependence upon the sharing. It is an interdependence. You really discover the oneness. Not that it's in you and nowhere else. It's just that which is in you and that which is in someone else is the same thing. And that's where that kind of intimacy comes from. This isn't the denial of the human. It's an amplification of it. Is that clear, Vera? In the beginning, because we're so used to thinking of, if I don't have it, if it's not in my life, I don't have it. I got to have it. It's got to show up or I'm never going to be happy. That when we turn on this path, that state of mind interprets the inward facing path as if it is a denial of that. And that's where you get ascetic spirituality and the denial of desire, all of which is nonsense. Right? You can't deny it. We just have to find it in its real source. We want to find it in the place where it permanently exists, not temporarily. We don't want to be endlessly seeking it outside and then losing it, or not finding it at all, which a lot of people have the experience of. Or finding something and then it turns out to be disappointing. That we don't want. We want to find the real source of it, so that what expresses it, even though it's not going to be something that is permanent, it too is going to ebb and flow, but you won't ebb and flow. The times when you have have a main squeeze, it's great. And the times you don't, well, it's great too, right? All of that helps us really appreciate the preciousness and the beauty and the impermanence and the specialness of every moment. What do you think, Vera? Does that answer it for you? Does that nail it? Remember, this is not a path of asceticism. It's a path of enlightenment, the path of understanding. It is not a denial of the human. It is not the Hinayana of I'm going to go into Nirvana and transcend all of this. It's the Mahayana. I don't even bother entering into the Mahayana. I go fully into my own humanness. Infinity Coaching. Hi, it's Sab from Paris. Hi, Sab. There's my thing bouncing around again. Wow, a lot of questions. And how we doing? Oh, 2:01, an hour already. Remington. Hello, Remington. How are you, buddy? Is there a difference between presence and isness to the thing that's at the end of non-duality? Not sure how to phrase it. Is there more than just the present moment, or focus on the present moment? Well, I'll answer the second question first. Is there more than just the present moment? Do you ever experience anything more than the present moment? Do you experience the next moment or the previous one? So from your own experience, you have to say, there's nothing other than this present moment. That's a matter of experience. It's not a teaching, not an idea, not a concept. Look for yourself. Do you ever experience anything other than the present moment? Now, when you talk about or focus on the present moment, our capacity to focus is always in this present moment. Do you ever focus on something that isn't in this present moment? You say, well, yeah, I do all the time. No, you're focusing in this present moment on an idea about the past or the future. But you're not actually focused on the future or the past, only a concept in this present moment. Now, if you are completely absorbed into that idea of the future, you're going to be interpreting this moment from the point of view of the future, which is things are going to be better, which was really saying things aren't good now. So my focus of attention is things are not good now, or things could be worse in the future. So now I'm afraid. What am I going to do now to avoid? Everything happens right here and right now. Absolutely everything. And the thought about the future is simply a thought we're having right now. But our belief in that thought will determine the quality of the experience that we're having in this moment. Without that, the quality of the experience in this moment is perfect. It's ideal, it's happy, it's genuine, it's peaceful. It has to be intruded on with some kind of idea about this present moment, or about the future, or about the past. But look for yourself. Everything is happening right now. There isn't anything other than now. Only thoughts about other things, all of which are happening now. So you say, is there a difference between presence and isness to the thing that's the end of non-duality? No, there isn't. The thing that's at the end of non-duality, that is, that which non-duality is pointing to, is the simple sense of being. You can call it isness, that's Mooji's favorite word. You can call it presence, that's Eckhart Tolle's favorite word. also Michael Brown. There's a few people. There's various camps. You know, the sense of being, the aware of being aware, pure consciousness. They're all words, okay, and they're all designed to point you towards an experience. So when you say, is there a difference between isness or presence, really that's the mind thinking, oh, presence is this, and it's subtly different if it's isness, but it's a little bit different if it's awareness. They're all different words that we use to point to the same innate experience that we all have. And so look to your experience. And when you look to the experience, you'll find that that is consistent. Now, depending on who I'm talking to, I will use the word presence or awareness or consciousness or isness or God or the self or para-atman or para-brahman, all of the, depending on who I'm talking to, but they're all pointing to the same thing. The I am is another word. They're all pointing to the same thing. And I don't want you to get lost in the ideas and in the thoughts because they're not important. What you're experiencing. Red is your experience of being experiencing itself, your awareness of yourself. It's very subtle. It doesn't move. It's empty. It doesn't seem to have any attributes. It has no moving parts. So from the mind's point of view, it's not interesting. Okay, there's nothing to capture its attention. When things move and there's shiny objects and the like, and it's special effects, then the mind's engaged. Oh, yeah, this is great. This is really spiritual. But the reality of just simple presence, simple isness, simple I amness doesn't do anything. And therefore the mind goes, yeah, well, what's that? What's next? Come on, give me an experience. I want an experience. That which you are isn't an experience. It's what you are. It's not you experiencing something. It's that which is always having the experience, which itself cannot be experienced as an object. It's not a phenomenon. It's the fact. It's not what appears. It's what is. Hence the word isness is a good one. But there's a feeling of presence to it. You know, you're clear that you exist, right? It's not ephemeral. I'm here. That's presence. Same thing. It's the same thing. Does that help? Bilal Al-Amin. Hey, hi, hey, GP. Bilal from South Carolina. How to abide in the I am. You can't not abide in the I am. That's what you are. In order to not abide in the I am, you have to have another I am trying to get into the I am. Can you see? It's very subtle, but this is the way it works. We create an image of ourselves. We identify with it. Then we create another image somehow of the I am, the presence, the isness, the ultimate. And we think we're trying to get to it. Well, the one that is looking at this sense I am is conscious existence, right? Are there two I ams? Is there two consciousnesses? Is there two I ams? There's this one over here, and I'm looking at it. Well, then who's looking at that? Balyani put it beautifully. He said, he is veiled by his oneness. The oneness of our being, the actual not two-ness of our being is what makes this seem so difficult. It's the veil over our eyes, because we've all been trained to identify with stuff that is external to us and not to that which is actually having the experience. That which is having the experience is the I am. Are you not the I am? Are you not the I? If you say, and I ask you who's having the experience, what's your answer going to be? Well, I am. That's it. That's the I am. And the sense that you could be separate from that, right, is also perceived by the I am. And the sense that there's some place I have to get to abide in the I am is being perceived by the I am. So where are you? You're there, right? Your mind is simply telling you you're not, and you're believing it. You think, oh, I'm not there yet. Just a couple more, a little bit more meditation, maybe more, 4 hours a day now, or just a little bit more, one more insight, one more retreat. You're there. Who else is hearing my words? Is that not the I am? Is the I am not that's hearing my words? Yeah. You're simply believing your mind. That's all. That's all that's happening. The I am is believing the mind. Or you could say the I am is experiencing the sense of believing the mind, which is also appearing to the I am. Without the I am, nothing appears, right? You become completely void, oblivion. Only the I am is experiencing. So that must be what you are. So every thought that says you have to go somewhere else, you can simply dismiss. Where? And if I go there, who's going? Oh, oops, I am. Me again. And it's okay to use the word me or just I. You know, it's a street name for God. Thank you for that question. Great question. Bilal, did I say that correctly? Bilal? Madeline's says hi from New Jersey. Hello, Madeline's. Pretty Cat. Are the desire for intimate relationships in the same realm as desire for materialistic things like money and success? No, they're not actually. They're much more natural. They're closer to the essence. Usually things like the desire for money and success, the desire for expansion and growth and self-expression is natural. The desire for love, to express and to receive love and intimate relationships, they are very, very fundamental in human beings. Those totally natural and innocent desires get colored by the sense of the egoic mind. And so the desire for expansion within our culture becomes the desire for money and success, or the desire for safety becomes the money for desire. The egoic need to substantiate itself becomes the desire for success. That doesn't mean all success is egoic. It just means that the egoic mind has grabbed on to its own sense of inadequacy and tried to compensate with it through things like money and success. And it commandeers our natural desires, right? Because the egoic mind has no the egoic mind produces nothing. It commandeers what does exist. So when you're looking at the actual pure innocent nature of life itself, we find that it's pure. Expansion, growth, evolution, intimacy, interaction, collaboration, community, those are all absolutely natural and innocent. When those desires are commandeered by the egoic mind for its purposes, that's when they become impure. Did you follow that? So we have to look. I have a desire for money. If you start tracing it back, what is that actually for? Well, you'll find is at the root of it is our natural desire for safety and freedom, which we have then interpreted culturally and egoically to mean I get a lot of money and I have a lot of success. If we get more, the closer we get to the essential of the desire, the more likely it is to be fulfilled. The further away we get from it, the more egoic it gets, the more demanding it gets, the more nasty and violent it can get, because it becomes the further away from our nature, the more desperate it becomes. So money has come to mean success and freedom in our culture. It doesn't. It means absolutely nothing. It's, we make the stuff up, right? We don't even, it's not even paper anymore. It's just numbers in computer that are made up and just kind of added to whenever they want more. But if you bring it back, what does it mean? It's just the means by which I survive, get my needs met, and get my desires met, right? But if we see that those desires are natural and have inherently the capacity to fulfill themselves, we detach ourselves from the cultural rules, of which the ego is a big part, and become closer and get closer and closer to the actual nature of things itself. Beyond that, the actual innocent nature of life itself is the nature of being itself, which is one level deeper. And that is basically right at that level. You're stepping into the realm of the absolute. Does that answer your question? Desire in and of itself is always pure, but desire gets colored and interpreted by the ego, and that's when it becomes impure. And so the spiritual path is not, I've got to get rid of no more desire for money and take the vow of celibacy or the vow of poverty. It's getting to the root. What's the pure thing here? What's the real thing? What's the real human desire? And then beyond that, who am I? The one who is aware of the human desire. Patang says, the attempt to suppress desires is a desire in itself. The solution to the paradox is to accept it. Yes. Yes, to want to get rid of desire is a desire. So you see, you can't. You can't actually do it. So what do you do instead? You totally accept it. This is the way it is. But then you can begin to explore, whose desire is it? You know, your desire to eat is not personal. It's not yours. You know, I have a desire to eat, and you don't. No, of course, it's nature. It's life. It's just who we are. You look around, you find all of our desires are like that. However rarefied they might be, the highest creative desire, right? The greatest artist is the same source, came from the same place, right? And doesn't belong to anyone personally. That's where freedom comes from. Oh my God, it's not my desire. It's just the desire of life. Well, then who am I? I'm the one that's aware of life. I'm prior to life itself. That's the deep place of consciousness. And again, this isn't a teaching that I'm just pushing on you. Look for yourself. You can see you're aware of life. You're aware of the desires of life. You're aware of the flow of life. If you're aware of it, it means you're standing apart from it in some form, which means you're deeper than that. You're more subtle than that, which means, wow, what am I? You can get to that question with that kind of a, wow, what the hell am I? That's what I want to inspire. Saif says, I enjoy these live streams quite a lot, GP. Great, so do I. I do too. I love them. Alessandra says, hello from Monterey. Hello, Alessandra. Good to see you. Anne says, glad to find you live. Didn't see usual email, so just popped on to see if you're here. Oh, I guess I have to check into that because it's supposed to be automatic that these emails are supposed to go out with the Satsang reminder every Sunday. So, but as we all know, technology can sometimes go off the rails a little bit. It definitely has. Moonlight Delight, love that name. Now that you realize that GP is a made-up story and see him at a distance, does he still grow and evolve, or will he completely dissolve in this lifetime? Well, GP is a name, right? GP is a story. Yeah, it's just a name about functioning, right? So there's a functioning of the nervous system, different kinds of conditionings. There's preferences, and there's certain things you can do, certain things can't do. And you know, you project a sense of identity on that, but you eventually just see that it's a function. So in that sense, GP is dissolved. GP does not exist, but GP does exist. This is why the way the Buddha taught it was so right on the money. It neither exists nor does not exist. If you say it doesn't exist, you're in nihilism. Nothing exists. There is himself. And you'll hear the majority of Advaita teachers talking like that. And it's Hinayana. It's not the great vehicle. GP is not a fixed thing. You're not a fixed thing. Moonlight Delight you're not a fixed thing. The moment we give it a name, our minds want to fix it as if it's a thing. But when you step back, you see that name is just a word projected on what is an extremely complex set of functions that are going on. Now, the mind naturally does that. The process is called abstraction. So we use the word body, for instance, when this body is made up of 50 to 100 trillion cells. That's a lot of cells. Every cell in that is a single functioning and being. Now, if you take that all apart, you can't find GP there. There's nobody there. So, but it does function in unity the way an orchestra would function in unity. You look at the orchestra from a distance and you hear it, and it's like this one functioning thing. And if we were in our ignorance, we could look at that and say, oh, it's one thing. Or if you've ever seen starlings, murmuring is what they call, where you'll see all these birds, a huge flock of birds, thousands of them, moving in lockstep, shifting and dancing in the sky and taking all these different forms. If you're, because of the perspective we're looking at, we can see the space in between them. So we know that they are flying together, but there's no center to that. There's no guy in control saying, okay, you're on left, turn right. It's all happening as if they were one entity. So there's a oneness that is creating these many that are functioning as one. Well, if you zoom in on the human body, you'll see exactly the same thing. You'll see cells that are separated, but are functioning together. Go even further down, you'll see molecules that are quite separate, and they're functioning together. At every level of perception, this is what's happening. In biology, they're referring to it as self-organizing systems. One biology doctor, PhD in biology that I know, who's also a Zen guy, said that there's no self. There's no evidence for a self in the human body. You can't find it yet. It makes up a self. It makes up the functioning. Now, if we project on that functioning a sense of it being someone rather than this momentary appearance, we are stuck. That's the self that Buddha says doesn't exist, but he doesn't say it doesn't not exist, right? It doesn't not exist. It also doesn't not exist, right? Because GP is something we can identify and point to, and it's a particular thing, it has a particular character, just like you. Everyone you know is a particular way in which this is appearing. Only when we think that it is a fixed person do we get in trouble. That doesn't exist. To see that is the self dissolves. But when the self dissolves, it's not like there's nothing there. It's just that what I see now is that there's a functioning and there's no person. And so I, which am not GP, not this body, none of that, am quite happy to function through that, the way the piano player plays the piano. It's fine. Piano player doesn't play the flute, doesn't show up at a concert and bring his guitar. He plays the piano. That's his instrument. So that's what he's playing for now. Right? I'm playing this for now. But when you look closely, you can't find a GP, but it's very convenient and useful for us to refer to that, right? And again, that's the way the mind works. It makes an abstraction. It takes complex things, simplifies them so we can have a word in the language. But what the mind does, that is the illusion, the mistake that it makes, is that it then thinks that this complex functioning is an entity. That's the projection of the self on that which has no self. And that's how this whole thing happens. When you see that, you realize the only self, the only true identity is you, the one looking at it. But then you drop trying to discover what you are as some object. And you realize that all objects are empty of a self. And then they become useful. Right? So then, GP is dissolving every second, right? Because it's just a name for this constantly overturning functioning of energy. That's all it is. Energy is constantly renewing itself, and we gave it a name. Right? But there's nobody there. And I realized that I'm not that. And that's all I'm inviting you guys to do, is to realize that, oh, I'm not that. And then you just really fall in love with the question, well, if I'm not that, what am I really? Right? That's the first step, is to realize you're not that. That turns the attention inward. That's the neti. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. Well, then what am I? But when you do it like that, you realize that the answer to that question, what or who am I, cannot be answered with another object. No object's going to answer that question. So the answer has to come from someplace else. And that is what Buddha referred to as the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. That's self-realization. Does that answer your question there? Moonlight Delight? Love that. Mark C. Hi, GP. Are you familiar with the work of Rodney Smith, specifically the book Touching the Infinite? Be nice. I find it to be a nice companion inner reconciliation, especially level 3. No, I'm not. I've heard of the book Touching the Infinite, but I haven't read it, and I'm not familiar with Rodney, so I can't comment on it. But I suspect, if it's resonated with you, that there's truth in it, and that, and of course, level 3 of inner reconciliation is really just the dismantling of perception and everything I've been talking about right here, and bringing you right to the purest non-dual question about who I am. Whereas levels 1 and 2, I talked earlier about that little continuum between pure materialism up to enlightenment, and the levels of inner reconciliation just kind of go along that path. So unfortunately, I can't really comment on it, but I trust you. If you think it's a nice companion, then I'm sure that it is. You should recommend it to other folks. Alessandra, 16-year-old daughter feels like she is a boy and an imposter, that he took over my daughter's body. What would you do if one of your sons wished to reverse to a female one? This is a very interesting one, and it is kind of a modern phenomena. What I would do, first off, let me address it on the deepest spiritual level. And on the spiritual level, on the deepest level of our identity, we are neither male nor female, right? I'm working through a male body at this point. So it's got male characteristics and male interests and male voice and that sort of thing. But I know perfectly well that that it's, the water has been poured into a male container, so it's taking on the characteristics of a male, right? The same water poured into a female container, and I'd be acting like a female. Right? Put me in a cat, I'd be a cat body. I have cat thoughts, cat consciousness, right? So who you are has nothing to do with gender. So then it becomes a matter of how does somebody come to be content with the particular form they have in this moment, or truly recognizing that it's off, that it doesn't feel comfortable? What I would do, I would invite them to go into the discomfort that is at the core of it. Because just like I was saying before, to the one who was feeling lonely, so go into the feeling, because our mind has an idea that, oh, loneliness is this, and this is what I need to do. There's a feeling at the root of that sense of disorientation or identification with gender. There's a feeling at the root of that, a feeling that's uncomfortable, doesn't feel right, feel out of sorts. Like I would do with anyone, let's go into that feeling. Now that mind, 100 years ago, that this particular idea that, oh, you're it's wrong, you can identify with a different gender, didn't exist, right? So the mind didn't have that tool to throw in, right? Now it does. So we can say, oh, here's the discomfort. Oh, that's because you're in the wrong body, and you need to identify with that, or maybe even have an operation. I'm not going to say no to that. Of course, that would be inappropriate and cruel and irresponsible and not true, right? But my solution is always the same. Let's go to the discomfort. Let's not assume we know what that discomfort is about. Let's say, because that the mind wants to jump on something right away. And of course, the moment you do, notice that you have created a schism between you and the discomfort. You've suppressed the discomfort. The discomfort itself is the only thing that knows the truth. Go into it and throw aside any idea as to what you think that is. That's the most honest approach to it. And I hope I'm putting this in such a way that I'm not saying to the person that what they're feeling is wrong. There's plenty of people doing that. And I'm being really painstakingly specific about the way I'm saying it, because I've seen really horrendously cruel things said about it. So this isn't a criticism of it. It's not a judgment of it. I'm saying that may be the solution, that may be the truth, but the truth is in the feeling. It's not in our idea about the feeling. And the only way to get to the truth is go directly into that feeling and stay with it long enough to a different level of conviction as to what it is about can arise. So that that feeling, the truth of the feeling can reveal itself, and we don't have any story about it. Then you'll know for sure. Then you won't have any doubts in your mind, and then you know exactly what to do, one way or the other. And it may be something completely different, maybe another track you hadn't even thought of. But the most important thing is that at the center of this is some traumatized energy, is some stuff that is distressed, and we need to get to that. Not think we know what the solution is, but to actually touch the part of us that is suffering. And if we do that and provide it space and love and compassion, it will show us what it needs. And at that point, it's game over. It'll take over, and there won't be any doubt in your mind or any concern. How's that, Alessandra? Thank you for that question. That is a beautiful one. Clay Sue says, Happy Hanukkah. Thank you. Thank you. Is that started already? Oh, because it varies in the year. Wow, that's great. Saif says, I appreciate your thoughtful answer, GP. I have another question. What has helped you most in your personal journey towards realization? I have moments of insight, but struggle to maintain. The thing that's helped me most is coming to terms with those struggling to maintain, dropping my expectation that enlightenment was somehow an end to problems or an end to feeling or an end to, all the ideas I had about it is the ideal state, which was really my mind imagining, projecting upon enlightenment, the perfect escape from life, which is the Hinayana path. That's, I want to go into nirvana. It's the perfect escape from life. It's not. After enlightenment, the laundry. It is a redefinition of your relationship with life. So there's no more suffering in it, right? And so even those times, decades now, and all of a sudden I'll find myself absolutely confused. I can't think of anything. My mind doesn't work at all, right? And I used to think, oh, clear mind, that was it. And when everything was crystal clear and I had all these insights, then they start, I have no insights whatsoever. I don't know. I got to write something. I'm staring at a blank. I've got no ideas. Nothing's happening. Then that's when I realized that who I am is aware of the confusion. It's aware of the lack of inspiration. It's aware of everything. And so the confusion or clarity become irrelevant. Yeah, sometimes the mind's clear, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's absolutely dense. Sometimes it does the stupidest things in the world. Sometimes it's off the charts brilliant, right? I used to think that awakening and realization was, I'm always happy. Everything's always up. Everything's always wonderful. I'm always inspired. I'm always, right? Now I realize that the realization is that I am aware of life as it is. So I'm there. When the mind is dumb, the mind is dumb. It has no effect on me. When the mind is smart, it's smart. It has no effect on me. And that, recognizing that, coming to terms with the ups and downs of life has been where realization has really, really taken place. Is that clear for you, Saif? Yeah. Stop trying to hold on to the moments of deep insight and recognize that all of that comes and goes, and put all your attention on what is aware of it coming and going. And you find that doesn't come and go. And that's what we want. We don't want that which comes and go, nor do we want to spend our life trying to hold on to something and make it stay. or trying to push something away because we don't like it. That's suffering, right? You're what is aware of whatever's happening in this moment, whether it be the most grand thing in the world or the most boring thing in the world. You are the awareness of it. And there's where the freedom lies. Now you can just take life as it comes, and all of it's enjoyable. All of it is what it is. That's what's meant by isness or suchness. Oh, what is it? This, just this. Claser says, suffering is the energy. Oh, suffering is the energy. Oh, it was, I see it a little bit further. Oh, hold on, got to scroll again. Where do you go? Oh, suffering is the energy of emotion that cannot be released from the body. Yes, perfect. Yes, that's all it is. Well, a little bit more. It's our resistance to the emotion that can't be released. And of course, it's our resistance that's kept it from being released. Our resistance to wanting to feel it. So the suffering is always in the resistance. It's in what I want to get or get rid of. But if I totally accept this moment, if I totally let myself feel what's being felt, there's no more what I'm actually feeling anyway. There's no more resistance. And what that happens is I'm present. And what that is opening, safety, expansiveness, and that's where the release takes place. Suddenly you're not fighting it anymore, which means there's no suffering. There's no conflict, no suffering. Laura Reed says, can there be thought in pure consciousness? I've had remembering of past life deaths where I was leaving my body, but there was thought there, but no emotion, even in a traumatic death. Wow, interesting question. Yes, well, you are pure consciousness right now. Is there thought? Yes. Comes and goes, doesn't it? Comes and change. When I asked that question, is there a thought? For a moment, there wasn't, right? It stopped because you were looking somewhere. And then all of a sudden there was, oh yeah, there's thought. Or I said there was thought and I interrupted the looking. So the thought comes and goes, right? And what's watching it come and go? Pure consciousness. So can there be thought in pure consciousness? Of course, there is all the time. Everybody is pure consciousness. We think of pure consciousness as being this state without thought. It's not. It's the medium in which thought is coming and going. It's the medium out of which thought is made. So the pure consciousness is all there is. Pure consciousness takes the form of silence. Pure consciousness takes the form of thought. It's all consciousness. And when we say pure, it really is just kind of interpretation. Consciousness is all there is. So what we're really talking about is, are we believing the thoughts or not? Right? Which is a different level. And if I stop believing them, I just sink into pure consciousness and I realize thoughts are just coming and going. But thoughts aren't random. Thoughts form patterns like everything else in the universe. This cup is a pattern of energy, isn't it? Right? It's just a pattern that is in this shape momentarily. I could grind it into powder and it wouldn't be this shape anymore. The tea that's inside, which is actually a nice green tea with honey, is also just a form, is just energy in a particular form, right? So that's all we're dealing with. Thought is no different. So it's not random. That's why thoughts have a pattern to them. They form a pattern. If we believe in them, oh, that's true, then that pattern gets energy and it perpetuates itself. If we see, oh, it's not true, it's just a thought, there's no real self in it, it's not absolute, it can change, we're free of it. And that the freedom is when the sense of identity moves more towards the consciousness that underlies all thought and away from the thought, but it's not the absence of thought. Thought will continue to come and go. But of course, the more attention you're paying on consciousness, the less thought there'll be, simply because it's not that needed. you only go use it when you need it. If you don't need it, you don't. Thinking then becomes much more casual and useful, by the way. You said, I've had a number of past lives, remembering of past life deaths where I was leaving my body, There was thought, but no emotion, even in a traumatic death. By emotion, I think what you mean is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wrong here. That there was no more suffering, that there was no more pain, there was no more fear, there was just quiet. But there still was a formation of thought going on. And yes, but as you enter more into the state, make that transition between worlds, that thought will calm down. And what'll happen is it'll end up being pure experience. It'll be a direct understanding where you won't need an intermediary of thought. And so thought will become quiet as well. In the beginning, yes, there'll be thoughts. Remember, it's kind of like a machine, right? It's still going. Thought, our actual experience is not in the body. Okay, the body disappears. It's a vehicle through which it expresses. The body disappears, but then thought, emotion, thought, sensation, they all disappear. But you begin to see that they're not the same. that are the experience of consciousness, which is thought, sensation, and emotion. The sensation disappears first because that's the most tightly, because the body doesn't exist. There is no body. There is only sensation. Consciousness experiencing, we call it a body, right? So the first thing that disappears is sensation, which means you no longer feel the pain. Simultaneously, or maybe a little bit after, emotion, the fear. All of that just vanishes with the experience. And then probably third, the thought goes. Sometimes the thought can go immediately as well and go, purely into light. But in traumatic experiences, like a traumatic death, some stuff can linger. Matter of fact, it can even take root in the repository consciousness. We had a person recently in the certified facilitator training we went through who had them remembered using inner reconciliation, the process we were doing, remembered being burned at the stake. Even with speaking in an accent and the like. So all of that energy started to come up. So those traumatic deaths can wedge themselves in what in Buddhism they refer to as the repository consciousness and appear as energetic patterns in another life. We don't have to get into all the detail as to how that works. It'll unfold for you under time. It's not that important. It's just really, it's important to know this. When we say pure consciousness, we're actually talking about consciousness as it actually is. Consciousness as it actually is this absolutely indescribable, pure substance or background to everything. And everything that is experienced, thought, feeling, and sensation, which is the totality of experience, is made of consciousness, right? When we think that it is something separate from consciousness, we have created the illusion of the world. When we recognize that everything we're experiencing is consciousness, then what we're experiencing and the one experiencing merge, and you experience that sense of oneness. And now you see things as they actually are. So it's important to note that it's not that there's consciousness and then there's this other thing and there's a good consciousness and a bad consciousness and there's something pure and impure. None of that is true. Consciousness is what you are. That is actually all you're ever experiencing. And again, don't take my word for it. Just look. Do you ever experience anything outside of it? It is always the vehicle through which everything is experienced. And we imagine that consciousness is the body made up of stuff and we're experiencing something external to ourselves. I invite you to check that for yourself. Everyone who's ever does has discovered nothing exists outside of consciousness. And it begins to shift your whole world of view. And at first it's a little disorienting, right? Well, then what are other people? What are all these things? It's okay. The full Buddha realization doesn't happen all at once, right? It takes time, right? Let it unfold, but prove to yourself at least the possibility that there is no matter, there is no material universe, there is no external existence, that everything being experienced is in consciousness, being had by consciousness, and is made of consciousness. Check it for yourself. And then if you disagree with me, let's talk. All right, I got about 15 minutes left here. Tabby says, hi, GP, good to see you. Live here, good to see you too. Wow. There's always trouble for me because I never want to leave any question unanswered, but Bilal says, yes, and thank you so much. Love and blessings. So I'm getting some of the yeses. Yes, thank you, voices. This is great because I always like to know that what my answers get through, and if they don't, please just say I didn't get it, which does happen. Helen Watson, hello, Helen. As also from England, I think, yeah. As I sit listening to you, I'm aware of feelings going on in me. I think I've had a stressful day. Very challenging, not giving the feeling a word. Realize how I always give feelings a description. You don't, your mind does. You're the one who feels the feeling. You're the one that's aware of the description, right? I'm going to keep harping away at that because we're so identified with our minds. The mind starts describing. We say, I'm describing. You're not. Remember, you're just aware of a flow of thoughts, which is now describing. And the habit of the flow of thoughts is that the flow that thoughts describe. That's what our minds do. They compare, they associate, they remember, they anticipate, they describe, they narrate. That's it. That's what they do. They don't create anything, not really. They're always simply describing experience. Experience happens first, then the mind description. The beauty of this kind of spiritual inquiry is we see that there's experience, and then there's the narrative or story about the experience, and they're not the same. I mean, it's an incredible thing to realize. Then you can begin the practice of actually experiencing directly without the story, and you have a completely different world that can open up to you. Suddenly it's just, oh, I'm having this experience. Then the mind goes, oh, yes, this experience. Oh, it's like this. Remember, it's memory. It's remembering. It's categorizing. Oh, yeah, that's just like this. Oh, okay. So this. And before you know it, you're out of the experience and then you're into the YouTube video of it, right? Which means you're not actually having an experience. It's instant replay, right? Go back to the experience. Just keep coming back here. And I just arced off on that because of the way you said that, realizing I've always given, yes, you haven't, but that is what the mind does. When you realize that, you realize that our ideas about our experience are not the experience. And often those ideas are, oh, this is bad, this is terrible, this shouldn't be happening. And there's where all the suffering is. If you just completely disregard that, look at every experience as being unique and just in this moment, and go right into the experience without any narration, you'll find the vast majority of your suffering simply disappears, because the majority of the suffering was in your mind avoiding the feeling, not in the feeling itself. And that is so liberating. Vera says, thank you, GP. It helps. I don't want to be dependent upon outside love, yet I don't want to deny that I would like it. Perfect. Yes. Tricky. Yes. This is why I call it inner reconciliation. That's why Buddha called it the middle way. Yeah. I don't want to be dependent on this. And simultaneously, I want to experience that, right? Now, both of those are real, aren't they? Right? Now, what we do most of the time to try to resolve what is apparently a conflict is I try to get rid of one of the, I take sides, all right? I go, okay, I got to deny to ever have that feeling. I don't want to be dependent on outside love, so I'm never going to have that feeling. I want to get rid of that feeling. I'm going to suppress that. I'm going to transcend it in some way, right? Or you go the other way, right? It's like, well, I have to have that feeling. I'm not going to be happy unless I have it. So I'm never going to deny that. I'm not going to go along this idea that I'm everything inside, right? You take sides, right? So what happens when you take sides? The conflict, right? Because now both of those are actually there. You can't get rid of them. They're both real. They're both natural. Neither one of them is going to go away. So if I take sides, all I'm going to do is set up a fight. And the harder I fight, the more this digs in its heels. It absolutely always matches identically where you're at. So one day you might just get exhausted and give up and go, oh, yeah, I give up. I'm not going to try anything anymore, which is just a different position, a different way to do the same thing. what I bring people to in inner reconciliation is this place in the middle. I call it the peacemaker, where you completely embrace both sides simultaneously. Oh, I don't want to be dependent. I don't want it to be false. I don't want it to just be an expression of my neediness, right? I want a real, genuine thing, but I don't want to go without it. I want to have real intimacy. So I want to have, I don't know what the word for. Is it interdependency? Is it, right love? Whatever, right relationship, whatever name you want to give it. It is whatever the perfect middle way is, whatever the perfect reconciliation. That's why I call it inner reconciliation. It is the reconciling of opposites. It's the opposites not losing their nature or not being denied, but the nature, opposite natures, harmonizing with one another to bring about a third element, which is life, which is harmonious life, a harmonious human being. So it's not easy because our natural tendency is to want to take side. We want to get rid of the conflict. But if you're willing to sit in that middle place, just sit there, right? Don't take sides. Don't have an agenda. Simply want the highest good. Simply want the truth. Simply want both sides to be fulfilled, to what is absolutely natural and unaffected and unconditioned, the real natural desires on both sides to be fulfilled. And you just stay there as long as it takes. And you'll notice how much you want. That's the whole practice of inner reconciliation. The whole way I work with people and teach people to work with people is to just stay right in that spot. And you'll find very quickly, when you're not there taking sides, your energy knows how to naturally harmonize, and it does it automatically in some stunning ways. I mean, downright mystical ways. Hard, if I tell you about it, you go, what? No, it's not possible. But it is. It happens. Sometimes in the process, enormously traumatic material can come to the surface because it's that traumatic material that created the schism that made this happen in the first place. And that stuff just starts to release. And we can experience past lives and speaking in tongues, all sorts of weird stuff can happen as that takes place. But what's really happening is all of the denial, all of the inner conflict is being stripped away, and harmony is emerging. And you find that our natural state is this harmonious unity of very different aspects of ourselves. And we don't deny those different aspects, don't suppress one in favor of another. We allow them all to be there. And we find this incredible dance. When one particular inequality is needed, it kind of takes the lead and then fades back, and then another one. So there's this constant, you're never stuck anywhere. The energy is constantly shifting to mold itself perfectly to the environment, because it is the most perfectly adaptive system in the universe. And you happen to be walking around in it. Pretty Cat says, yes, thank you. Bilal says, yes, thank you, and so much love and blessing. Thanks to you. Dear GP, I wanted to share with you, this message is held for review. Okay, I'll share it. Oops, where did it go? Did it just jump ahead? I said show. Okay. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I'll have to click on that later because I can't click on a YouTube video while I'm on YouTube. Liz says, hi all. Hi, Liz Love. Clay Sue says, we are humanity. Yes, we are. We are many. I am many. We are one. We are Gaia, the Gaian mind. I mean, there's so many beautiful ways to put it. Howdy, GP from Albuquerque. It's Eric. Hi, Eric. Thank you for the grounding wisdom. Oh, you're more than welcome. Clay Sue, I am a cell in the body of humanity, a facet on the diamond. Yeah, you're the cell in the body of humanity, and you are the body of humanity. You are a facet on the diamond, and you are the whole diamond. This is the wonder of true non-duality. It's not two. You are, I am GP, and I am everyone simultaneously. I am one, and I am many. In essence, at the root, down at the bottom, you are all. You are absolutely one, the one and only. And then that one and only is expressed in an infinite number of ways. And in that infinitude, there's another sense of I am, which is simply this one amongst the many, which allows the one to appreciate the vastness of its own oneness. Because it's not a oneness that is one alone. It is a oneness that is simultaneously an infinite all, an infinite many. Eli Jen, beautifully put. Thank you. Popcorn Machine 84. Hey G from Sweden. Hey, good to see you. Mark C. Thanks, GP. Yes, the book I mentioned has resonated, as he, like you, helps us discover that we have been formless and boundless all along. Yeah. Namaste. Good. Books like that, I'm all for. Yeah. And it's just hard. It's just hard for the mind to grasp that you're actually formless, that pure consciousness without bounds is what you are. But that consciousness can create form. The formless can create form. I know. What the hell, right? How does that work? You can't figure it out with your mind. It's the way it works. That is what works. One is many, right? Mind, which is object-oriented, subject and object all the time, cannot grasp that oneness. But you can, because you are it. That doesn't mean the mind is totally useless. It's not, right? All the subject and object is consciousness experiencing itself as many, when its nature is one. And so that's where the whole subject-object relationship comes. Consciousness is experiencing itself as me. It's also me speaking to you. It's also you experiencing consciousness is you experiencing me, right? But it's all consciousness. It's the same consciousness, like we're all in the same space, right? The space here is no different than the space in New York or Sweden or Albuquerque. It's the same space. The content makes it look like space is divided, but space isn't divided. Take out the objects in space and we're all in the same place. We're all hanging out in the same place. And Kaufman. Anne says, thank you for your sharing about ups and downs, help with current feelings. Yes, it's the critical thing that we all have to understand, that spiritual awakening is not an escape from the ups and downs. It's the understanding of. That's the difference between the Hinayana path, or the seeking of nirvana, and the Mahayana path, which is the seeking of enlightenment. Enlightenment is reunion with the humanity. It's a total embrace of the ups and downs, but of course it's without suffering, because there's no resistance to them anymore. Nike Cookie, hello from NYC. Oh, NYC Key. Oh, NY Key. New York Key. Cookie. Anyway, hi Cookie. New York City. Just left there. Laura Reed. Thank you. Welcome. Nike Cookie. I was watching Jim Newton last night and laughed so hard at how he shut down every concept about I. Totally realize how much of a fraud I am. Yeah. The I as a thought is nothing fixed. It's forever changing form. It's a total chameleon, because there's nothing really there. It's only a thought. Because it's only a thought can become anything. There's nothing of substance there. But what is of substance is that which is aware of the I. That is substantial. That's not a thought. That is not something that is shifting and changing. And you, again, validate it for yourself. What is right now hearing my words? As you're knowing that you're having an experience, has that ever changed? Has that ever been different? Is that affected at all by what thought happens to appear or disappear on that inner screen, you might say? And that's where we can see through the thought of I, as opposed to the actual I. Or we can say there is no I. That we could say it that way too. There's only being. Any of those will work. I'm not interested in being 100% precise, except in terms of the point that's being made in the moment for the people the point is being made for. Helen Watson says, thank you, GP. Wow. Oh, you're welcome. Are we getting towards the end? We are. Look, this is great. Mark Thomas. Hi, GP. I was talking to my friend earlier about free will. He believes we have some free will, but not complete free. Some people believe we have no free will at all. What is your opinion on free will? I don't have an opinion on free will. Again, I'm going to invite you to look for yourself and see, run the whole, let's go in slow motion here, right? When we talk about free will, if we try to look at it philosophically, we can come up with, we do have free will. We can come up with, I don't have any free will. I can come up with, there's something in between. And we could take any one of the philosophical positions that would, and argue any one of those. Of course, the beauty of genuine non-dual inquiry is you realize that all positions are transient. And the moment you take that position, right, the world's going to look like it's true from that position. And if you get stuck in that position, now you think you've got the truth, right? All dharmas are empty. All teachings are empty of self-existence. So let's look at what we're actually experiencing, right? And see if we can draw some conclusions from that. That's the way I like to do it. Look at what happens when a choice is made. A thought arises of something to do, something to have, some action to be taken, right? That's what most choices are about. There's a thought, a desire arises to head in a different direction. A bunch of other thoughts come up and talk about that direction, right? And maybe an alternative comes up to go in a particular direction, do a particular thing. And now all of a sudden, there's two different directions that have to be taken. And of course, human beings can only take one direction at a time. Now, notice, trace that all the way back, and that original desire that arose, the original thing you want to choose from. Did you create that? Go and see if you can find yourself creating that option, or if it was simply a thought that appeared out of nowhere. If you look all the way back, you'll find it just appeared. You can't actually find you making that happen, making that determination. Right? So I'd say there, okay, something happened. This thought presented itself. Some other thoughts came up about that thought that presented itself. An alternative thought came up about that, is, oh, let's do this instead. And then a swirl of thoughts happened debating which one's going to go, right? Which one's going to be, the one that gets the nod. And then it's somewhere along the line, another thought comes up, or some maybe subtler, just a feeling or an impulse. That's the direction. The choosing thought happens. Undoubtedly, right? Every choice involves the choosing thought, right? That's a given. So you can't say there's no such thing as choice, right? Now, just like every single one of those thoughts arose, didn't they? Trace any of them to their origin, and can you find yourself there doing it? Look hard. I've done this, and I can't find it. Even the choosing thought simply arose out of emptiness. So my answer then is, there is choosing, there is a choosing thought, those I can find no chooser. Now, in order to have free will, you have to have a chooser. And that's just another idea about choice. Choice is real. Alternatives occur to us. We take one path over another, right? But when you really look closely, you can't actually find a chooser. What you find is simply a series of thoughts coming from emptiness somewhere. Emptiness is the best word for it. It's coming from out of this empty space. Suddenly, these thoughts arise. And when you go all the way back there, you find all you can find is emptiness. Now, this is what you can, you can check this for yourself. And some comes along, well, then there's a thought that says, I chose that. But that's just another thought arising out of exactly the same place. And then somebody can say, well, it was conditioning. We make all sorts of ideas, free will being one of those, predestination being another, conditioned program responses being another, all sorts of explanations of what happened. But when you look at what actually happened, that's it. There's nothing, then there's a thought, there's a whole flurry of thoughts, some action takes place. There's a choosing. I can't find any chooser. To me, that's the most accurate I've been able to get, and I can verify that with my own experience, throwing out all the ideas about it. So at that point, there is choosing, but there's no chooser. As Buddha put it, there's a path, there's a walking on the path, but there's no traveler. This is what he means by no self. It's not a denial that there are choices, but there's no one choosing, which of course would mean there's no free will, because in order to have free will, there has to be somebody making a choice. But if you can't find that one that's making a choice, and again, we assume it's there, right? We just all so convinced that that's the truth, right? That this is, and we believe that there must be somebody there. I invite you to look. After a while, if you can't find anybody there, you have to conclude there isn't anybody there. There's no chooser. There's no person. And then suddenly, again, you get back to this consciousness that is aware of the entire process. It's not choosing. It's bearing witness to what, in fact, is simply an unfoldment of what? This is the mystery we all get to explore. I hope that answers it for you, Mark. It's a really great question, and I hope I've taken it to the level of depth that is warranted by your inquiry. Popcorn Machine says, will you hold that seminar on reincarnation and karma, please? If I get enough people who want me to do it, I'd be happy to do that. Mark says, that makes a lot more sense now. Thank you. Good. Yeah. You'll notice how the mind always wants to go one way or the other. Is there free will? There's not free will. Is there predestination, right? And reality is much more interesting than that. Reality allows for everything that happens in human life except the existence of a concrete, inherent, permanent self. That's the only mistake. Please, big, full capital letter, please. I'm definitely considering it. Yeah. Helen says, great question, Mark. Great answer, GP. All right, it's after 3. And, wonderful. Great questions today. Great ideas, great engagement. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. It's so gratifying to me to be able to carry on this level of conversation. And, I can't always. There's a lot of as I said in the beginning, talking about, sometimes you have to teach at the level people are at. And I have some courses that are just very, very basic, that are based on, law of attraction and stuff like that, which is really quite remedial. Right? But everybody starts somewhere. Somebody who's been a victim all their life that realizes that they can change the way they think and feel, they have the power to do that, and has a big effect on their life. That's a huge step forward. You can't ask somebody completely, stuck in ignorance to suddenly become enlightened in a split second. It's not going to happen. It's important that we take all of these steps. So I am hoping that as I train more people, I'm going to get more people who can teach the remedial classes, and I can spend my time doing this because I want to, the older I get, the more I want to spend on the stuff that's most fundamental, time's running out. So I don't have time to cover absolutely everything like I did at one time. So at this point, it's time to start, focusing the attention on that which is absolutely the most important. So I hope I'm articulating it well, because to me, that's the only reason the non-dual understanding hasn't really taken more deeply a deeper hold, is because it hasn't really been expressed and articulated well. And I feel kind of my missions in life is to remedy that and to do my very, very best to express it. But I know waiting in the wings is somebody who's going to do it better. And I can't wait for them to emerge. And it could very well be one of you. So I'm getting a lot of thank yous and love it and the like. So as always, thank you all. I'll be at it again next Sunday, and the Sunday after that. I will be on those Sundays when I can't be live. I will be making a video. So my promise is to you, there will always be something here for you at 4 o'clock on Sundays. Can't guarantee I will always be here live. No matter where I am, I will do my best. And if not, I will prepare a little something special to make sure that you get your weekly dose of inquiry. So thank you all. I love you. Namaste.